popping. Um, yeah, first of all, hey, it's great to see so many folks, so many Ohioans on this call. We're about to talk, we're going to talk about community solar and community energy. We've got an active bill in the Ohio legislature that has some real legs, y'all. It's got nonpartisan support, and we got some real potential to move this thing. So this conversation is quite timely. We're going to focus on hearing from two Ohio small farmers. One from Ashtabula, Mark Clay, and one from East Palestine, Steve Mondak. And then we're also going to hear from Andrea Oliver, who's a leader with TerraSmart. And TerraSmart is a solar racking company outside of Cincinnati. And so community solar can be relevant, to jobs in that industry and at this particular work site. So we're very excited to hear more from this crew. Maybe next slide. And yeah, I just went through these folks here. This is who we're going to hear from, y'all. I also want to shout out our state director, Mariah Williams, who's been rocking out on this bill. And she's particularly been building really strong relationships at the Ohio legislature. And she's going to speak about one of the bill sponsors, Representative Ray, a little bit later. So our theory of change, also Solar United Neighbors. We help people go solar, join together and fight for our energy rights. How about that? Yeah, give us some love, Brittany. So yeah, I mean, long and the short of it, y'all, we help groups of families go solar. We'll help to leverage group buying power with maybe 40 or 50 families so that we can get better deals on rooftop solar. We help to educate folks throughout that process. And we help to make sure people know what they're doing when they're buying rooftop solar. But through that, y'all, we build relationships, we build leadership, and we help to organize into groups so that we can lift our voice in a powerful way at the state house, at the municipal level, and even around local issues to make solar more relevant, more accessible. And just real quick, what we're doing right now is an example of that, y'all. We got, 40, 50 folks on this call, learning about community solar and how we can move it forward together. Next slide. All right, real quick, y'all. Just this is going to be a real basic primer on like what community solar is. And I know some folks on this call are steeped in community solar and they have a clear understanding, but this is just a real basic look at it. So, what is community solar? All right, so community solar, y'all, it's the notion where we can set up a community solar array offsite. Okay, this community solar array, hey, it could be on a small farmer's land. It could be on Mark Clay's land, a portion of Mark Clay's land in Ashtabula. It could be on a large industrial rooftop, maybe on top of a Walmart at Steelyard Commons in Cleveland, Ohio. And then these solar arrays, y'all, subscribers who are in the area, who are in the same utility service territory, they can subscribe to those panels. And this image that we see here, y'all, it's trying to demonstrate that this community solar array that's offsite, different subscribers can subscribe to a portion of these panels. And then they get a benefit on their electric bill based on the amount of solar that's produced through these panels. So essentially, the panels, they do their thing. The utility is going to buy that energy from these panels and provide a credit onto folks' electric bills, to all the folks who subscribe to this program. So what that means, just like peeling back the curtain, what that means is that thousands, mass people can start to subscribe to solar energy. So renters, folks who can't afford their own panels, folks who live in a condo, that's many people. All those folks can now have access to community solar and get the benefits and cost savings of solar energy. That's what this community solar and this community energy bill would do. So it's quite exciting. It allows mass participation. It's going to lower energy bills. And then lastly, there's a dynamism around these projects. It creates possibilities where, hey, maybe a local faith organization wants to put solar panels on their roof or over their parking lot, and they want to make sure that their congregants and maybe low-income folks who live around the church get the first opportunity to subscribe. So it creates networks and opportunities for really nice community value with this bill being enabled. Next slide. Let's see. I'm not sure if we can hear this one. And then Mariah, did you want to maybe intro this one, y'all? Or did you want to intro this one?
Well, we had tested it and we could hear it, so I'm not sure what changed. But this will be Representative Ray. She is one of our sponsors of the Community Energy Bill. In this case, House Bill 303, because she's a House rep. And she's going to tell us in her own words what this bill is. So we'll see if I've got it set for volume now.
Hi there, I'm Ohio State Representative Sharon Ray, here to tell you about House Bill 303, which I am joint sponsoring with Ohio State Representative Jim Hoops. House Bill 303 creates a framework for community energy facilities to be developed here in the state of Ohio. This bill would allow for up to 1,500 megawatts of new energy to be put right on the grid, 500 megawatts of which are specified for brownfield and distressed sites, 250 megawatts each in the 4 electric distribution utility quadrants in the state of Ohio. House Bill 303 includes all of the following electric generation sources: solar, wind, biomass, hydro, natural gas, energy storage systems, and fuel cells. House Bill 303 allows community energy facilities to be placed on a contiguous parcel of land and is always subject to all local zoning regulations. By putting new energy on the grid, and ensures that when we hit that switch, we're always going to have enough power to move us forward. I'm Ohio State Representative Sharon Ray, proud to sponsor House Bill 303.
And we were super glad that Representative Ray would take the time to record this message for us, because obviously I'm sure she gets a ton of asks from different groups. So it meant a lot that she wanted to take that time to help us with our webinar and share her thoughts on the bill.
Mhm. Well said, Mariah. And just to affirm, I mean, Mariah and this whole crew, a lot of people on this call have done great work engaging legislators and building relationships with legislators in a nonpartisan way. And I just want to put that out real clear that right now, this bill is nonpartisan. We have both Republican support and Democrat support in the House Energy Committee for this bill, which is quite exciting and really makes this bill viable. Um, yeah, real quick, as Representative Ray, it's a 1,500 megawatt pilot program, meaning that in 4 years there would be a review of this program. How's it going? Do we need to make adjustments? What have we learned in 4 years? But it is a pilot program, so we do kind of get to try this out and see how it goes. That 1,500 megawatts can relate to about 300,000 homes. So again, that mass participation is quite exciting. Just real quick on the broader energy context in Ohio. And I love the excitement in the chat. Let's go. So Ohio is a net energy importer. So we certainly produce energy in Ohio, but overall we import about 20% of our energy. So that means we're pretty reliant on the regional grid operator that's called PJM. But essentially, Ohio, we got to be buying energy from neighboring states and from this regional grid. As folks are probably aware, folks heard about data centers and artificial intelligence. These data centers, they are mammoth in terms of energy demands. Like the scale of energy demands of data centers is pretty staggering. And so what that means for our grid, it has big implications for our grid, for energy prices, for the ability to keep the lights on. And these AI data centers, they're coming in quick, y'all, in Ohio and many other states, particularly in states that are part of the PJM grid. So that creates a context where in Ohio, we need energy generation. We need much more energy generation quickly, and we need to increase capacity. Um, and, uh, and I would say notably that has, I think, pushed legislators to have more urgency around creating generation sources. So maybe, 5 years ago, legislators might not have been as open to trying new things and getting more electrons on the grid quickly. Now, I think we're seeing a turn where there are opportunities to really fight for solar and community energy in a serious way, because it's going to help to bring down those peak demands in Ohio, and it's going to lessen our reliance on imported energy. And two, community solar, it creates that energy locally. Y'all, that energy kind of stays local. It stays closer to where it's going to be used. And so there are big benefits to that. We don't need these big transmission lines. A lot of the grid upgrades locally are done through private developers, through private capital, and that saves everybody money. And then lastly, community solar, hey, it comes on the grid quick. And that's what we need. We really need some quick movement in Ohio. And then, yeah, with this bill, y'all, we've we submitted about 50 proponent testimonies in support of House Bill 303. So shout out to folks on this call. I'm sure folks on this call submitted proponent testimony. That stuff matters. It demonstrates to legislators that there's broad support across the state. And we've also had kind of a nice mix of voices from manufacturers like TerraSmart, Walmart, to faith organizations like the Catholic Conference of Ohio, has expressed support, to solar organizations, to unions. There's been a really nice mix of pro-solar voices that have expressed support, and that matters. The legislators see that. Lastly, I'll note the only opposition that we have right now is really monopoly utilities. It's been AEP, Ohio, and Edison Electric is in opposition to this. And that's okay. We're going to keep doing our thing. We'll work with them as we can. But hey, we want to make clear that they're the only real opposition, at this point. There's been so much support across the state. And then just a quick note on timeline, y'all. We're hearing that they want to get this bill out of the House Energy Committee by November 19th. So that's coming up pretty quick. And after it gets out of committee, it would move to the House floor. And we think that would happen pretty quickly after it moves out of the House Energy Committee. So, we'll definitely be in touch on next moves here. Next slide. And then, yeah, with that, y'all, I want to hopefully we got Mark on here. I'm so excited to hear from Mark Clay. He's a small farmer in Ashtabula, and he's been supporting this coalition, gosh, for some years now. And Mark's been a real leader, speaking in front of AEP headquarters, sharing his testimony and sharing his story. But yeah, I just wanted to give the floor to Mark here to talk about his small farm and why community solar is relevant to him.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I was a little bit late. I'm not sure what happened. Technology is a problem sometimes. Anyway, let me give you a little background. We're going into third generation of this farm. My father and I started out farming this, raising cattle, as you can see. Going into later in life and with my situation, I'm in my mid 60s, and I really don't have anybody that can farm the land anymore, or that's um, family members that are doing other things, but they want to have the farm. So, I was telling Roger the other day that I get texts and emails at least once a week about people wanting to buy the farm and turn it into a subdivision. I really don't want to do that. Um, I would like to be able to hold on to the farm and make it work for my family, and then be able to keep the land long after I'm gone, and actually kind of give back to the community. Because if you're familiar with the Ashtabula area, it's pretty, um, we need help. So, just that's my idea, to hold on to the farm and maybe help somebody else out. And moving forward on this, I was telling Roger yesterday when we were on the phone last night that, I work for DTE Energy, which is out of Detroit. And we actually have a cogeneration plant here in Ashtabula, and we provide electric and steam for a couple of couple of chemical plants around here, and they're building us a new unit to continue to supply. Um, it was very interesting that I was on a Zoom call in a meeting today, that we are DTE Energy is starting to support a lot of these data centers that Roger was talking about, and they're massive and they take up a lot of power. And the reason that they're contacting us is because we're not part of the grid. We create our own energy, and we can do it quickly. And that's why we are overcoming the grid. And the more that we can supply and keep power down, prices down, the better off we are. So I'm also in support of anything we can do to help out, um, like in negative carbon and all, to help this planet, because I think that we really need to look forward to that. That's all I've got right now, unless there's questions.
Yeah, well said, Mark. And at the end, y'all, we are going to get into questions, and I am seeing questions in the chat, so definitely keep those going, and we'll try to address those as we can. But Mark, real quick, I want to paint a little bit of a picture for folks. Yeah, like how many acres is your farm, Mark? What are maybe some of the animals that you got on the farm, or some of the crops that you have? Give folks a little sense.
Yeah, okay. So the first picture to the left is our raised bed garden, and you're looking out over the farm where we graze the cattle. To the right is my cat looking out at the cattle that we have. So we typically raise beef cattle, and the farm size is 47 and a half acres. So, it's a small farm, but it's also a little bit too much for me to continue to do by myself without anybody really helping. So hopefully I answered your question.
You did. You did. Thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome.
And let's see. So I think we have Steve Mondak on here, and Steve is a small farmer out of East Palestine. And Steve, if you're on here, we'd love to just, if you can share a little bit about your story, about your farm, and why, community energy would be relevant to you. And you might be on mute, Steve. Huh. I know Steve's on the call. We might circle back to Steve here. I'm getting a text from him. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see. Let's see if I can
Hey,
unmute.
how's that, Roger?
Hey, Steve.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name's Steve Mondag. I'm a small farmer, East Palestine, Ohio, probably about 80 miles south of where Mark is. We have a 120-acre operation, if you call it that. It's very basic small farm. Yeah, we have some timber, some hay, have a few chickens, some honeybees, still a little bit of honey. We're in the Appalachian Highlands, so the soil is typically not as fertile as it is, say, north in Ashtabula County. We're Columbiana County. It's, as you know, Appalachia is a distressed region. Our area, East Palestine, obviously hit with the train wreck a few years back, so we know the consequences of pollution, how bad it can be. And so for that reason and many others, I support community solar. It would allow diversification of income streams for small farms like mine, and there's many like mine that struggle. You have to work a full-time job on the outside, otherwise you couldn't keep your land. You'd have to sell it. The whole batch of everything we do is not enough to even approach self-sufficiency. So that's why community solar would allow not only for me an income stream for myself, it would allow my kids to God willing, hopefully, hold on to and maintain the property and continue to farm well into the future. The other thing few people discount, we have to keep the farms, especially high quality soil and even marginal land, because if global warming is a thing, and it does seem like those of us have had a few decades on us, the temperatures are drifting up. West of the Mississippi, all that farmland, then it's prone to drought. If the rain patterns change western the United States even a little bit, you're going to see a lot of that land is going to come out of operation for various reasons, not just because of the lack of rainfall. Most of that area from North Dakota to Texas, has millions of acres of wheat and corn and so forth. It's dependent on the Iguala aquifer, a large aquifer that underlays much of that region, but it's being depleted at a rapid rate. So if you have the two equally consequential actions of global warming, along with depletion of the aquifer, there's going to be no way to water millions of acres of land. So it behooves us for many reasons, not just for lack of pollution, reduce carbon, but we need to keep the farmland as farmland and not develop other than where absolutely necessary, or or secondary areas like brownfields and areas such as that. Yeah, I guess any questions?
Yeah, well said, Steve. And at the end, we will open it up to everybody for questions, and again, you can put them in the chat too, y'all. But Steve, I did want to ask. So Steve penned a really nice editorial in the Columbus Dispatch. Y'all, and we'll try to share that editorial out in the follow-up email. But Steve, wonder if you could just maybe reflect a little bit on the East Palestine, like the train disaster, the environmental injustice that happened there, and just kind of maybe share a little bit about the editorial that you wrote.
In the big scheme of things, that's probably one of the worst environmental disasters to hit any part of the United States in probably the last 25 years. The reason I say that is not only of the immediate impacts for those in the area. I mean, I know you could travel, it's within 4 miles of my house. You could travel down major state routes a month or 2 months, even 3 months out, and it was still, I did it. And luckily, I'm just far enough away that and I'm up a little higher than the city of East Palestine. But your throat would burn, you would cough. There were major implications. Honestly, there's YouTube video where the EPA actively covered the sensors they had in place with garbage bags. They didn't want the full story told. There was supposed to be a monitoring plane go out within hours after the incident. It was grounded for 3 days. So yeah, the point is not the whole story is not being told. Nobody's getting it. The very few are getting any kind of money from that. Not that that matters in the big scheme of things. The fact is, if we can stop pollute less across the board, whether it's carbon emission, shut down coal plants, go to solar, and get rid of the sources of pollution, if we can reduce cost, in a case like this, in regards to a community solar, the bill is going to, I guess, either fly or crash and burn based on the merits of a couple things. There's the environmental protection aspect. Of those involved are already well aware and are actively seeking the environmental benefits. Of course, maybe with there's not just that. We have a large waste incinerator, one of the largest in the country, 15 miles south of me. I mean, there's a landfill probably 2.5 miles. It's just one thing after another. If we can do a better job and not just protecting the planet, making it better, not just for us, our kids, and we also bear in mind, we're here, we share with plants and animals. So if we can think holistically and make the planet better for everybody else, why shouldn't we do that? Give that a shot. Reduce. I mean, most people in Ohio are probably paying more for. Like I know, I've been on my farm about 30 years. We're paying almost to the penny double what we did 30 years ago. I mean, it's ridiculous. Along with the other costs that everybody is faced with daily, from food to property tax to gas, to the whole 9 yards. We need to bring. We've entered an age of austerity. We need to bring costs down across the board. Electricity is a big one, a big factor in most people's budgets. If we can control it, if we can empower individuals to create their own electricity, to be able to sell a little bit back to the companies, reduce their bills, maybe even, who knows, maybe even earn a little bit of money. I mean, that seems like, I mean, who would, other than the monopolistic AEP and the like, who would in their right mind go against that? That seems like, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Here, Steve. Well said. Well, let's see, Mariah, you want to intro Andrea and just share how y'all met and tee Andrea up here?
Yeah, sorry. It's a little difficult whenever I'm screen sharing to hit the unmute button. But I had the privilege of a couple weeks ago getting to go see Terra Smart's facility for myself and meet lots of lovely employees that they have there, many of which have been with them for multiple years. And so it was great to hear their story on how they use Ohio products like Ohio Steel in their manufacturing and get to see firsthand the care that they give to making sure that their facility is safe for people like me to tour, as well as for their employees to be able to work in, and how those products can then impact solar here in Ohio. And we had one of the developers that uses their products there with us that day. And Jessica was just telling us all about what great things these were. So let's hear from Andrea, though, and she can tell us about those products even more.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So, just to give you an overview, if you want to go to the next slide of what we provide at TerraSmart. So, we provide the solar racking. So, if you're picturing a solar field in your mind, you typically see the solar panel like a blue or black rectangle. We're basically everything except the panel is what we provide, is what we tell people. So, there's solar panels and modules. There's actually a manufacturer in Ohio that manufactures those as well, but we do everything except for that. So the steel structures that are holding the solar panels up, and then also all the electrical components that actually connect it to the grid, we provide those as well. So I'll have a photo on the next slide that helps kind of show it better with a picture versus what I'm describing to you right now. But that's what we provide. We also do have our own in-house construction team. So we will install projects for our customers, again, utilizing either our in-house team or depending on the demand that we're seeing and where it's happening, we'll use subcontractors that are local to the state that we're building in. We do serve, I know today is very much focused on community, which for TerraSmart, community is the biggest part of our business. So obviously here to support everything that everyone is saying. We do work in the commercial and utility sectors a little bit as well. If there's anyone who's local to the Cincinnati area and visits the Cincinnati Zoo, you've probably parked under one of our solar canopies there. So the Cincinnati Zoo, I always like to shout them out because they are just a great zoo as far as being green and using renewable energy. And they have 2 solar canopies that cover their parking lot. So just an example of where we're building in Ohio. But we are headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, as Roger mentioned earlier. In Cincinnati, we have a long history of a manufacturing operation that we have there. So, I mean, it dates back to like 1932 of different types of steel manufacturing and roll forming and things like that. But more recently, obviously focused in on solar. But we have the manufacturing operation. In addition to that, we have a ton of members of the team from our leadership team, our president, our design and engineers, project managers, construction, some people in shared services like marketing and HR and finance that all work out of our Cincinnati office. And we just recently this year, and I know you mentioned earlier that you got to visit a few weeks ago, we just recently expanded our manufacturing operations to now produce some additional components that we sell. So we're always looking to really grow in the Cincinnati area, support the growth of not just our manufacturing operation, but anyone who's working out of our Ohio office as well, and just find growth opportunities. So that's just a little bit about TerraSmart. If you want to go to the next slide, this is a little bit better visual of what I was trying to describe earlier. So if you see, the white rectangles on your screen here, that's the back of a solar panel. And so you can see underneath, there's a lot that's kind of highlighted in blue, and you can see the steel structures. Those are all the components that we provide and we sell to developers on solar projects. So really what we're focused on in Cincinnati is roll forming and basically taking all these steel parts and bending them to, whatever shape they're supposed to be, adding holes so they can be, screwed together and connected in the field. You can see here I listed, the components and what we call them, but basically anything that's highlighted in blue here, we manufacture out of our Cincinnati location. So there's a good amount that's actually going through our Cincinnati office. We have a full shift. I know right now the team is actually really busy because a lot of people are trying to finish up some of their installations before the end of this year. So we're running full steam ahead right now. If you were to visit this week, you'd see a very buzzing office and operation going on there. And then just to talk a little bit more, if you want to go to the next slide, about just a little bit about kind of solar in Ohio and us. And the kind of impact that we're having within Ohio. So just a couple stats that I threw up here. Solar in Ohio employs a little over 7,700 people, and then powers a little over 724,000 homes annually. So just wanted to share that. Obviously, with this bill, we're hoping to expand that. And then for TerraSmart specifically, I know I talked a bit about our Cincinnati operation, but also just wanted to say, because we have that long history that's really rooted in manufacturing in Cincinnati, we have really built a lot of our supply chain within Ohio as well. So a majority of the steel that goes through our Cincinnati manufacturing is from Ohio-based steel companies. We buy from 3 major companies within the state. In total, if you think of all the components and everything that we manufacture in our facility and all the services we use, we support 14 Ohio-based companies. So that's from the steel, like I mentioned, to a lot of different types of other components. And then also just, shipping and installation services as well. So some of that less product and more service-based, but you can see on the right side of your screen there, the map of Ohio. Those blue dots represent all the different vendors that we purchase from a supply chain perspective. So I will say, because again, we have such a history within Ohio, we're always excited and looking to support other manufacturers within Ohio. In addition to that, from a customer perspective too, wanting to, of course, partner with developers and people who are building in Ohio. Our team loves it, especially the project managers and the engineers that kind of design all of our systems. They love when they can actually go out into our communities and see what they're working on and see it being built. Visit the job sites. We do that a lot as a team, where we like to just get out of the office and go see what's being built out there. Some of it's close to us, some of it's a little bit further away, but we've had a good amount of projects within an hour or two kind of radius of our Cincinnati office that we've visited over the past year or two, which makes it really just, I think, exciting and rewarding for us to see that firsthand. So just the last slide here, because I know Steve and Mark shared their stories, and from a solar kind of industry perspective, there is a lot that's always kind of buzzing around agriculture and solar. So we call it in the industry agrivoltaics. It's not just TerraSmart. There's a lot of other manufacturers and developers within the business that have worked on a lot of these really interesting projects. If you were to go out and Google some, I'm sure you could find some. But I think what we're seeing and what our experience is when we worked on some of these projects is very similar stories to what you heard from Steve and Mark earlier. We're wanting, farmers are looking for maybe to diversify income, maybe, and I just have a stronger understanding because my in-laws own a farm not too far from where I live as well. So wanting to diversify income, wanting to have a more stable income and predictable income as well, and wanting to find that dual purpose for the land. So many of them are not giving up farming. They're not replacing one with another. They're looking at them to coexist, which is really, for us as a manufacturer. And again, a lot of times we're designing and engineering these systems. We really try to find a way of how can we work together, right, and have it not be one or the other. So again, if you think of this in real life, a lot of times our structures are built a little bit taller. So if you see a solar field now, they'll be a little bit closer to the ground. If you're building it on a farm, sometimes it will be taller. So, animals can roam underneath it. There's many times where we'll design our structures kind of like these steel beams that you can see kind of coming out of the ground in a certain way that if animals do run into it or whatever, they're not injured, so they're protected from it. The picture on the left side of your screen is actually a cranberry bog that we built. This was before it was built, and then the middle photo is after it was built. A cranberry bog that we did some really unique design, especially when it comes to the electrical components, because if you think you don't want any of that getting, down kind of where the crops are. And it was really interesting to learn how they harvest cranberry bogs as well. That was a new learning for me when we were designing this, having to take all of those things into consideration when we're designing those solar sites. So I think just a great opportunity for this to continue to grow as people like Steve and Mark share your stories and kind of open people's mind to the possibilities of where solar could be. And so I'll end there and pass it back over to the team to see if there are any questions.
All right. Well, yeah, real quick, we are going to open it up to the people on here real quick. But Andrew, I was just curious. So yeah, you said maybe some of your main work is with community solar projects, perhaps in other states.
Yeah.
And I know maybe you haven't like run the numbers, but it's like, if when we pass this community solar bill in
Mhm.
Ohio, I mean, just your sense of, what that would mean for your company. I mean, would you be kind of
Yeah.
after
I
these jobs and yeah.
Yeah, I think and I will say just from our experience and kind of where we are in the life cycle, we've had a lot of booms specifically in New York, and we're seeing it in Illinois as well with some of their incentives that they have at the state level. I mean, I think for us, where it has a lot of direct impact is the manufacturing piece, because a lot of what we will manufacture for community solar, because we have a pretty wide portfolio, but what we would produce for um, community solar would be out of our Cincinnati office, and it's really more manufactured products versus things that we would source or purchase. So I think the manufacturing operation, we could go from, running maybe one full-time shift to running maybe two, or, even three, depending on the demand. I think based off of, us in our peak season, we'll flex it, but really it's typically like a one shift type of manufacturing operation, and then we'll flex as needed. So definitely manufacturing growth. And then I think the other piece of it is actually really more in the construction and the installation. And so we have our own in-house team, like I said. They float around to different projects depending on, where the demand is. But like I said too, we do also utilize subcontractors, and we do that on a pretty regular basis, because it's really hard to find people who are going to travel around to where we're building all of our solar projects. So we like to find, people who are local to the area, so they're not having to travel away from their families and things like that. So we have those relationships, and I think obviously it would have an impact in a lot of the other things like engineering and project management in those jobs, but definitely a direct impact when it comes to construction and manufacturing.
Mhm. Here, here. No, thank you for that,
Yeah.
Andrew. The more we can do locally, the better, y'all. Ohio's a big, beautiful place. We can make it happen out here. So yeah, so with that, y'all, we just want to kind of talk it out. So if folks have questions, let's see. One way to do it, y'all, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a little heart down there that says react, and you can raise your hand. So you raise your hand, and then we'll get you off mute, and then you can ask your question. Or you can just put your question in the chat, and we'll try to, shout it out there. But don't be shy. Just any
We've
questions for
got
the
a couple
panelists?
from the chat we can start with while everybody thinks about future questions. So Mark, the first question was for you, and they were wondering, you said that you were getting calls from developers and from housing complexes wanting to build in, but are you getting any calls from solar? And that question could also go to Steve as well.
Okay, so probably about 5 years ago, I was contacted by numerous solar builders, and it was overwhelming at the time. And they wanted me to sign a lease to put a solar um, array here on the farm. I went through and talked with all of them, um, got an attorney, picked one, we got a lease, um, everything went through, and they just recently dropped me due to the current situation with the current administration. So, yes, I have been contacted. Um, we're not going forward at this time, and that's why this is so important to continue moving forward.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. That was my question. Yeah, appreciate you sharing
Sure.
the importance of what we need to do now.
I'm sorry.
Just wanted to say thanks for sharing that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
You want me to answer that as well?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we have been approached, and the question was posed to the company that if, of course, with the reduction of subsidies, if that would adversely affect the prospects of the project moving forward. They said it would not, because they have other developments in other places, and they've dealt with this. They learned not to depend on state or federal subsidies. So as of now, it's still moving forward.
If I can say one extra thing, so I want people to understand that it's a misnomer that the public does not pay for putting in a solar array. It is the company, and the company pays for that, and then they provide the power to the grid, which helps the community. So it has nothing to do with the public paying to build the solar array.
If you like to name the company that we're dealing with, you just contact me after the meeting, and maybe we get your project moving forward again.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look at that teamwork. And if there are other small farmers on the call who are interested, get in touch with us and we'll connect you with Mark and Steve and us. We're kind of building just a small farmer kind of organizing crew. So if we got any small farmers on here, get at us. Yeah, we got some good questions in the chat here, y'all. Yes, Abby, I did say we're looking at 300,000 homes that could be powered, and with the existing solar, we can maybe hit 1 million, and that is a nice round number. We like that. All right, I'm seeing Eric, a question from Eric. When the Ohio bill gets passed, how will the pilot sites be chosen? Great question, Eric. And again, the pilot program, it'd be capped at 1,500 megawatts. And again, that's about 300,000 homes, y'all. And the project size would be up to 10 megawatts on regular sites, but the projects can be bigger if they're on distress sites or if they're on commercial rooftops to just provide a little more incentive to build these projects on distress sites. And yeah, how it'll play out as towards the distribution across Ohio. I think there is some effort to kind of distribute them proportionally across the different utility service territories. But two, I think community solar developers will be looking at different plots of land and which ones might be the best fit. And then it'll get down to the local level of, hey, our small farmers, landowners, are they interested? Are folks like, Mark and Steve interested? Does it make sense for their family? So all that will go into it. Companies like that have large industrial rooftops, like a Walmart, for example. They might make an effort to work with the developer for a project on their roof. Also say that the way that the bill is set up, the decisions around, can a project go forward or not, it is very localized. So even down to the township level, we'll have to kind of grant approval for these projects. So there's a significant amount of local control, that's in these bills. And lastly, I'll just say some of the most, I think, dynamic projects can be those that are owned by the community and those that are collectively owned. And I think we have some folks from Cleveland Owns on this call. But hey, if and when this bill is passed, it creates opportunities to get a group of folks together to collectively own a community solar array and collectively get that benefit. Or maybe again, a local faith organization could take ownership of the project. Or it can be third party owned. But this legislation will really open up these opportunities for some really dynamic projects. Let's see. I'm just looking for other questions here. Yeah, any problems with vandalism on these any of these projects to Andrea or others? Just curious.
That's not typically something that we hear about. I know with a lot of the projects that we will install, I think it's required that there is a fence around the project, so that helps keep some people out. But yeah, I don't think it's a big concern or hasn't been raised as a concern with most of the projects, at least that we're participating in.
Got you. Thank you, Andrea. And I think it was Craig who had that. Yeah, that's right, Craig. That is a lot of homes. Let's see. I'm just going through. Yeah, someone asked, yeah, what's the most effective way that we can advocate, in support of House Bill 303? I'm just gonna take that one real quick, and you know what, Mariah, maybe just go to the next slide for now, and we'll get to some of these other questions too. But I do just want to say, like the effort around community solar and community energy legislation in Ohio, there's been a lot of participation among voters, you know, around this bill. So when there's committee hearings, you know, oftentimes those committee hearings, I don't know, there's not a lot of public participation. But what's been really nice and powerful about this effort is that regular ratepayers, small farmers, unions, various organizations have been very involved, and that has very much helped. You know, I think so effective things that we can do is continue to participate. So we're going to let folks know the next time that you can write proponent testimony. That's literally you just writing a letter. Why do you want community solar? And it gets sent to the leadership of the House Energy Committee or the Senate side committee. And that proponent testimony is shared with all those committee members. And so I think continuing strong participation with that will be awesome. Two, we've had ongoing coalition meetings, y'all, and we do one of our asks is, and we'll put this in the chat. We've been having coalition meetings, usually on Fridays periodically, but it's essentially a crew of Ohioans that are getting together, talking about how we can move this campaign forward. You know, can we have a local event, you know, at a local church or synagogue to talk about community solar? Can we do a letter writing party together? You know, which legislators do we really need to move? But we're having ongoing coalition meetings. If you want to participate in those coalition meetings, if you could please just indicate that. I think Mariah and I were going to put something in the chat. You can also use this QR code, which is right up here. But essentially, if you want to get more involved in this, and again, there's periodic coalition meetings. You'll get more in-depth emails. But essentially, we're going to strategize together how we can move this thing forward. Please sign up here. Just put your name and your email in, and we will be in touch with you. And I do think that's one of the most effective things we can do, y'all, is continue to show strong support. Continue to give Representative Ray confidence to make moves on this, and you know, other legislators, and show that, you know, we really want this thing. Let's see, Mariah is leading some of this work around a letter writing party. Mariah, do you want to speak to this event we got coming up on November 10th?
Yeah, so on November 10th at 7 p.m., you can either join us virtually on a Zoom, where we'll be playing fun music and giving you tips and tricks to writing an effective postcard. We will mail you those postcards ahead of time if you've registered, which that link is up there in the chat and on the screen as well. And if you're in the Columbus area and you want to come see some real humans in person, we will be at Land Grant Brewing. We're going to take over their Kickstarter room, maybe have a beer and some pizza while we enjoy writing out these postcards together. So we'd love to have you at either our virtual event or our in-person event. We've got plenty of postcards to send to everybody, because we're going to hit both the House and the Senate and try to blanket those mailboxes so that everybody gets a little bit of community energy as they're coming off of Thanksgiving break or the holiday break and into the new year. So we're going to target those sends at certain times so that they're the most effective and inboxed in front of them whenever we need them to see them.
Here. Thank you, Mariah. Out here rocking out in person and online with these postcards. And let's see, Thomas, I see that hand. See if you can come off mute here. Let me see if I can unmute you. And Thomas, if you look at your screen, there's bottom left, there's a little audio button, and you can click on that thing to come off mute. Oh, I think you did it. We can't hear you if you're talking, Thomas. Maybe keep trying, or throw your question in the chat, Thomas, and we'll get to it there. Sorry, technology is great, and sometimes it's tricky, huh? I feel you. Yeah, yeah, Thomas. Oh, there you go. I see that question. Thank you, Thomas. The Ohio legislature has continually favored fossil fuel providers. Will community solar be subject? I'm assuming you're going to say, yeah, will community solar face the same fate? Yeah, I mean, great question, Thomas. I do just want to reiterate that Okay, yeah, you have Senate Bill 52, and that had very localized siting. It was prohibitive for a lot of kind of larger scale solar projects. Good point, Thomas. But to like where we're at in Ohio, I do just want to reiterate that hey, this bill that we have, House Bill 303, community energy, that would enable a serious community solar program. It has real nonpartisan support. You know, having two Republicans that are leading this bill with Democrat support on committee and in the House, that is very meaningful. It's we need that unity, we need that nonpartisan unity, and right now we have it. And so, Thomas, I'm not gonna overpromise, but I think it's genuine to say that hey, we have a real shot here. You know, if we can come out of the House swinging with some real real unity across party lines, that positions us well for the Senate. So you know we got a real shot here. That's what I'd say, and you know that's a tribute to all the folks on this call have been making moves, but it's pretty rare across the country that we're seeing this type of unity around community energy. So let's not take it for granted. Let's get it. Let's see. I'm just trying to see if there's any other. Yeah, Craig, you wanna oh, let's see. I see some hands. Adam, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, sure. And I don't want to take the floor from Craig. I know he has some great things to say. But you mentioned how unique this is in Ohio with this bipartisan support, and I think some of that might have to do with this language of community energy. And Representative Ray, mentioned that it's in addition to solar, it's some other stuff, including gas, natural gas. And going back to the last gentleman's question, I'm just wondering, like, and maybe this is, not the battle we're fighting now. Maybe this is a few steps down the road, but like my concern would be, oh, well, if this passes and then we just get a bunch of like natural gas plants, like to me, that's not great. So I don't know if you want to speak at all to like if there's plans to make sure this is like renewable and not just a bunch of gas, or yeah, just what your feelings are on that are.
Yeah, great question, Adam, and I'll give a response, and if other folks have insight, please hop in. I will say that hey, this bill it's an all of the above approach. We're saying hey, any local generation sources, we want to kind of give them all a fair shot to get them on the grid quickly and make sure that mass subscribers can participate. You know, that said, Adam, a lot of work in Ohio has been done around community solar programs and like figuring out what that would look like through smart legislation. And there's been, 3 or 4 years of iterations of really trying to figure that out. And a lot of legislators have evolved the bills to make community solar fit and make sense. Um, I also think what really helps this is like community solar is just way faster, getting these electrons onto the grid. You know, some of the fastest community solar projects can be 9 months, 9 months to a year, or a little longer than that. But given the urgency around more generation, I think community solar is naturally positioned to be one of the big boppers around this community energy program.
That's good news.
Also, yeah, I mean, real talk, we're Solar United Neighbors, we're organizing for solar, so we're going to be, just involved with this and advocating for this. But I think also it's about us just staying with it and helping to create collaborations between small farmers and faith organizations and developers and, making moves on it. But here, we're going to keep tabs on it. But also I'll say that, hey, all the above approach is real and we need this nonpartisan support. And, so we want to weave that line. We're giving everybody a fair shot, but hey, we're Solar United Neighbors, you know?
And I'd like to add to what Roger said about that even though it is an all above approach, there are some energy forms that won't fit easily into those 10 megawatt limitations on regular sites and the 20 megawatts on the brownfield sites. So most gas production facilities have a much higher threshold of megawatts that they produce. So it would be very limited on where they would be able to be applicable with those. And so the bulk of what we will see will be into the biomass, hydro, wind, solar, maybe a few fuel cells, batteries, but it won't usually trend upward toward fossil fuels just because the investment isn't there. You know, fossil fuel companies don't want to invest in community projects that lower people's bills. That's not how they make money. And they also don't come in small enough to be able to qualify for these projects.
Great point, Mariah. Thanks.
Let's see, Mark, I see that hand, and then Linda, I do see that question. We maybe got a couple minutes, y'all. I see that question in here, Linda. I might try to get in the chat. If we got a second, we'll verbalize it. But yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but the lease that I had was 35 megawatt on my farm. So to me, that was pretty huge. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And again, making another plug, y'all, where if you want to get more involved with this coalition, we won't send you a bunch of emails. I promise it'll be substantive and real. It's a great way to get more involved and lift your voice in strategic ways. But yeah, please sign up here, get this QR code, just put your email down, and we'll be in the mix with you. I did want to get to, let's see, Linda's question here. Yeah, that's great. Can you talk about the difference between community solar and community-owned solar? We might have Craig on here from Cleveland Owns, who is living and breathing this work. But I'll just, community-owned solar, I mean, I'll just say it's like it's kind of the most wonderful. It's kind of like the gold standard, where it literally means that, hey, a community solar array, that, hey, maybe it's on the roof of a faith organization in the city of East Cleveland. That community solar array, if it's community owned, it's literally owned, by the subscribers themselves. So they collectively own that thing and collectively control it. And they collectively get the benefits from it. So rather than having a third-party developer that owns the array, community-owned solar means just that. It's literally owned collectively by the community and by those who subscribe to those panels. It can be maybe more challenging to do. But hey, there's all this beautiful democracy involved, beautiful collaboration, and you can really get some nice localized benefits. And we're blessed to have organizations across Ohio that are moving this work, and they've been very involved, with moving this statewide legislation forward. All right, I'm hoping we're getting all these questions. About 6:59. Mariah, any parting thoughts? Any other parting thoughts from folks before we call it?
The big thank you to all of our panelists this evening. Andrea from Terrace Smart, Mark Clay, and Steve Mondak, our small farmers. We can't do great presentations like this without the support of folks like you guys turning out and sharing your information with everybody, and we really appreciate that.
Here, here. What's up, Mariah? Yeah. Hey, it was so great to have such a crew online. We're gonna do this together. We're powerful together, y'all. Power in numbers. And yeah, and I just affirm, yeah, Mark, Steve, Andrew, thank you so much for rocking out. Look forward to building this with you and with everybody on this call.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, y'all.
Thank you guys. God bless.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for turning out for this.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.